This is Adomako Man, and you are tuning in to the Producing Peace podcast, a podcast that celebrates the vibrant tastemakers shaping NYC's cultural landscape. From artists to activists, we spotlight individuals driving positive change and shaping the future of our city. A captivating, multidisciplinary artist whose dynamic presence has graced both the stage and screen. Known for her role as Swan on the FX series Pose, my guest is a proud member of the esoteric house of Transcendence. Her theatrical performances include acclaimed works such as Maya and Rivers and Priest of Twerk, a Black femme star Temple Wisdom. She has brought her unique artistry to renowned venues like La Mama and Bad, and has performed at Cipriani's Wall Street for the Ali Forney Gala. Not only a writer, teacher, recording artist, and curator, but also a celebrated model hailing from the Boogie Down Bronx. Her impact work has been featured and archived in the Brooklyn Museum, and she has performed Our Labyrinth at the Met. An international darling, I'm sitting with Linda La.
Aw, thank you. Oh, thank you for that.
You're
wow,
welcome.
it really took me down the years.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so good to be here with you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about any of that stuff that I mentioned?
Of
you?
Yeah. I didn't even know that you knew about Transcendence. Transcendence is still new to a lot of folks. I'm like, the co-founder and I guess like really the pusher and motivator right now for the house. So it's been a journey these last 4 years or 3 years. We're in 2024 now. Yes, These last 3 years. I think about a lot of it sometimes, and so much of it has changed. Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Well, we're gonna dive deep into that.
Diving deep,
because there's so much that I want to talk to you about, and I feel like there's like a way how we are connected. I don't know if you remember how we met.
I remember very distinctly how we met.
Do you really?
Yeah.
You said that you didn't remember.
Who said that?
I remember because
I remember.
Really?
I remember.
What do you remember?
I didn't know we were spilling the beans. We met online.
No.
We didn't?
No.
I thought we met online, and then we met up in person. No? How did we meet?
Oh my God, you have like this whole other story because we didn't correspond online. That was not how we met.
Really?
We met. We met because we danced at the center.
The center.
Yeah. And I remember what you was wearing. You had on like a white t-shirt, denim pants, your dreads out. And I will never forget because you told me this whole story. And I'm not sure, because the memory's a little bit hazy, but I remember either you just took your dreads out, or you had your dreads in, and there was a point where you took your dreads out, and I thought that was so fascinating because I think you're the only person.
I remember this now. Yes.
Yeah, you're the only person I remember who literally has like taken their dreads out and wore their hair after. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that a couple of times actually.
Really? Why?
I don't think this is my third time locking my hair, and this is the longest I've had my locks. I think I just needed to transition to make such a commitment, and yeah, I don't know. Back then, I was still exploring and playing around, just with like expression. I think at the time that you met me, this sounds like I was 17.
We were
like 16, 17.
Were in the early years of high school.
Oh, so you met me at 14, right when I was still wearing baggy jeans and long t-shirts.
And I remember because we would speak on the phone. My locks
at 16, 17. Yes. Yeah.
I remember we were speaking on the phone, and I remember whenever I would speak to you on the phone, I would go in my closet. Just so like no one would hear my conversation. I don't know why. I'm just like so private with my phone calls.
Yeah.
Like any of the calls. So I just remember I was in school and my family and I just moved into this apartment that I was staying in. Every call that we had on the phone
was because I was in the closet. I was not literally in the closet, but I was in the closet speaking to you.
Wow. My memory of it, although I remember the center party, my memory of our first interaction was off of BGC Live for some reason. In my head,
never was on BGC Live.
Interesting.
So maybe
who am I confusing you with? That's terrible. It feels so long ago. But yes, I do remember the center party. I used to love those center parties. Mm-hmm. We used to get down. We used to get down at those center parties on no drugs, no liquor, nothing. Mm-hmm. I really miss the spirit of that, and everyone danced. Back then.
People don't dance anymore. I say that all the time.
They don't dance anymore.
Why don't they dance?
I don't know. I think right now we're like going through like a re-socialization where folks are still not only learning how to be mindful engineer, but people are learning to connect with each other and what to connect with each other on. I think. But yeah, I also think people are really, really anxious and self-conscious and just like nervous. And we gotta shake this shit out. Yeah, we can curse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Be your authentic self.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember talking to you on the phone,
and I was just so fascinated by the whole dreadlock process.
Yeah. And
so, like, I'm curious to know, like, what is your what is your your relationship to your hair now?
It is like any relationship in our lives, right? It is. It can have up and down. There can be some turbulence. It's a struggle sometimes. But I think we have great like programming now. Different documentaries and series. Just really celebrating black hair, celebrating kinky textures, celebrating locks and braids. And I think it was Chloe Bailey who said it best. Hey, Chloe. That, my hair really does have a life of its own. It just does whatever it wants. I'll pin it up one way and I'll get out the cab looking like this. But it's always a look, and I think I love how there are artists that like do all these different styles and influencers that are finding ways to mold and shape locks. So for me, it's just like an exploration to how many ways can I form it and express myself through my hair without the attachment to attachments or pieces or someone else's hair or some other material. And yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. The lock journey is a journey.
Do you see yourself fully committing again, or you're just like, I'm just here for the ride and we'll see what happens?
I've had my locks in since 2019, so I think I'm pretty committed. 2018. So yeah, I've been committed. This is 6 years now. Yeah, this is my 6th year. I've had my locks as long as I've had my cat, which I think says something. Yeah, it's a spiritual journey also. So I think the intention originally was I want to be able to wake up and go, and I want to be able to get out of a pool and not have to, worry that my hair is changing. And I love water. I love beaches, and while it's been a relief to some degree, locks, take a lot of maintenance. But also embracing okay, this is how my hair wants to grow. This is where my hair wants to break. I have involuntary bangs. I like to tell people. Yeah, I had too many men pulling at my hair. Okay, and I think just overall my own stress, and it shows up. Stress really shows up on our bodies and how we treat our bodies and how we treat our hair. So it's also a great reflector. So many things, but yes, a life of its own.
Well, so I want to start to the beginning of your life because we're so every time I sit down with like a new person,
Mm-hmm.
I realize like how like a lot of us people from New York are very much connected,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know what your origins are. So like, where are you originally from? What's your background? Because we know that you're from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I was actually watching your interview with Gia, and I was like, oh wow, like we're all really like from the Bronx. This is so wonderful.
Thank you so much for watching.
No, absolutely. It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. Hey Gia, shout outs to Gia. Love you.
Love you.
I Yeah, I actually grew up not far from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's crazy because I was just over here the other day for a barbecue that CK Life was throwing. Shout out to Kim Watson. And at Roberto Clemente Park. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't been to this park since I was like little. I grew up on Burnside and Harrison.
Oh.
Like a block from University. And I remember when I met Byrell, we both gagged at how close we like grew up like but never met each other. And I think the Bronx has a really mysterious way like that because there wasn't enough resources and like centers for us to meet. I think many of us met, you know, downtown or at the center or in these other places. Like we had Bronx Community Pride Center, but clearly it wasn't enough for me to meet other queer people in my own neighborhood. So yeah, shout outs to Byrell. Shout outs to all the Bronx girlies.
Yes.
Yes. Come on, Bronx girlies. But yeah, that's where it started. I originally, I believe, lived on 176th Street. But I was a baby.
Oh wow.
And you know, they were burning buildings. Building got burned, so we had to, because you know the Bronx was burning at that time, and we ended up moving to, and I was a baby. I have no recollection of 176, but I do remember when we moved to Harrison and Burnside and moved into these private houses, and yeah, my mother and my father used to fight a lot. She was a registered nurse, and he was a plumber foreman, and they was making dough, but they was fighting a lot. And so I grew up with a lot of violence in the home, like all the time. My father, he likes the liquor, he likes a good drink. So you know, we've always, I think, functioned as a family just with the understanding that he is a functioning alcoholic, and he's gonna get up for work in the morning. And that's, I think, how we spent many years until it became too much, and we ended up in a DV shelter, and that was in Brooklyn. I have terrible experiences in Brooklyn. Very bittersweet. Let me adjust that. Very bittersweet memories. Because I have a lot of sweet. Brooklyn's been very good to me. Shout out to Brooklyn. But we ended up moving back to the house on Harrison, and I continued going to elementary school. But yeah, I went to PS 226 on Cedric, near where they say hip hop was born. I think when we moved back into the house, I lived on. We were living on Harrison and Burnside again, but we were going to 279, on Walton, I believe. And then once high school came, I was ready to come out and get out the house.
Like the flag school or something.
Yeah, I went to Foreign Language Academy of Global Studies, and I came out at 13, 14. And yeah, I think because the school was on Jackson Ave, Bronx Community Pride Center was like right there on 3rd Ave 149, so we would walk. And that's how I discovered. I used to walk a lot in high school. I hated school. Once I came out, I lost any friends I made freshman year. Within those first few months, yeah, I didn't keep in contact with anyone from middle school or from my neighborhood. I joined a theater program at that time called City at Peace, but now I think it's called the Possibility Project, and that is where I learned theater, acting, dance, music, singing, choir, choreo. That's where I learned all the basics. But we learned theater through a social justice lens. So I learned all the isms very early,
Mm.
and we created theater as young people around these issues around sexism and racism and homophobia, etc. And it was based on our lives. And I did that program for I think three years, and then realized I needed to finish high school. And that was probably around the time that we met. So that was when I locked my hair. I locked my hair first in '07. And during this time while I was in high school, I was also in foster care. And so I lived like all over the Bronx, and I know I was at a group home in Brooklyn. Again, bad memories in Brooklyn. But I that program transformed me. Before that, I was at Flags because I was a visual artist, and my father he was a sketch artist, unfulfilled sketch artist because he became a plumber. So he wanted me to become an artist. I didn't want to be I couldn't sit still. Once I came out and I met my first queer family at this program, at this wonderful theater. We also did like social change projects and went to community board meetings, and we were learning about how the world worked and how to impact change. So that's always been the foundation of my work. And I think I started doing spoken word, and during that time, and I met a wonderful friend in freshman year, Nefertiti Asante, and she's the one who really got me back to writing. When I started transitioning, I stopped everything. I stopped everything. I stopped writing. I stopped acting. I stopped singing. I stopped dancing. I stopped doing everything because there was no place for. I felt like there was no place for trans folks in that industry. At that time, or I didn't know them. It's like if they weren't showgirls or drag queens, I didn't know, queer entertainers or queer performers or queer artists. So coming back into it was a slow process. It was shout outs to Cher. Cher used to host this like small intimate gathering called Black is a Poem in Brooklyn, and Nefertiti had invited me to just share my work in a small group and get some light feedback, and it was a wonderful re-entry. And then she like featured me in one of her performances. I think she was opening for Lady Moon and the Eclipse. Back, I don't know what year this was. It's probably like 2014 or some 2015. I can't remember, but yeah, I think it was 2014. I started writing more again, and I started doing more theater work, and I started working with Neil Witherspoon on the Messiah Complex, and then she got a residency at Brick. So yeah, that was. But then like I don't know. Through it all, it's been a lot. I think before I was ever able to get back to the art, there was I was displaced, and yeah. But
I mean, it sounds like you've lived an amazing journey of things,
yeah,
and
it's a mouthful. I know.
No, I'm so fascinated just because, like, well, for one, I when you said that you grew up in a household full of violence, that's something that I can connect with as well. I was displaced. Like my family, we moved around a lot. Like we lived in Texas, we lived in Connecticut, we lived in New Mexico, we lived in Tennessee, we lived in Georgia. We were looking for a place to call home. And so to hear you say that, it's like, and we're basically sitting here with like the same hairstyle. Like I'm like feeling so connected right now. I think I did see something about like you living on like land of Lenape or something like that. Like what like can you touch on that?
I think back in 2020 I had the opportunity to work with an indigenous artist.
Are you indigenous?
I not directly,
okay,
but I like to think that Black folk carry a lot of indigeneity.
For some reason, I thought that your dad is Puerto Rican.
He is.
Okay.
He is. Yeah, he is Puerto Rican. And my mother's from Antigua. Yeah, so I never forget, like in summer school, it was my first time doing summer school after freshman year, and we had the summer school teacher that would not let us forget that we were like Taino. Who would not let us forget that we were indigenous. So I think I think around the time during 2020, during the Black Lives Matter protests and the Stonewall protests, and watching this reclamation of native land and acknowledgement to native peoples and tribes, I was really happy to work with this artist. And my grandfather had just passed, and I had come back and she was the first a gig I was able to do, and she was very specific about us coming and doing the performance. Although it was a dance performance, she wanted us to proclaim our names, the native land in which we lived on and the native land in which we're from. So I was really happy I had been back to Antigua, although it was for unfortunate circumstances, because I learned so much about Antigua and its native name, Waladli. So I think for some years now, and I think we know what's going on in Palestine. And so I think when we're talking about colonialism, like, yes, for me the first step is acknowledging the native land. Yeah.
And so you got the opportunity to like work on, because I know Lenape is like near like Dykeman area, right? Or
I think the Manhattan land, and I think it spans pretty far wide throughout New York City. There's a website you can go on and you can look up, like you can put in your zip code and find out what native land you're actually living on. Yeah, and that's how that's how we were. The performers were able to generate that for the pre-performance, and yeah, it was a one-time thing. We did it in the Sculpture Park in Queens.
Okay.
This artist had built like this beautiful like pyramid sculpture and had dressed us in these beautiful, colorful outfits with like all kinds of messaging. And because it was, in the middle of the pandemic and the quarantine, they also designed these masks. I remember my mask, I think, said "powerful," and yeah, any opportunity I had to perform during the pandemic and the quarantine was really, really special, including my time, and really meditative and reflective, including my time with Bill T. Jones, and including Pose and all of it. I think.
Yeah, that all happened around like the same time.
There's something really going on in the orbits, I'm sure.
What do you feel like that time was like then? Because I remember seeing you on Pose, I would see you everywhere. But I guess before we touch on, because I want to touch a little bit.
No, we're like all I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm like just so excited. I am curious, what came first? Was it like going out and like being part of the community and going to like the teen pastures, or was it the art that came first?
The art came first.
Okay.
Because from the art, I found the community. Because artists are inherently queer, I think.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, some of the best artists I knew, some of the greatest. Some of the greatest actors and performers I've met. Were queer. I've been Black queer folk. So yeah, that was my entry into it. I don't know if I would have came out if I didn't have such a supportive queer family that I found through the art.
Wow.
Yeah, I was always a good writer. I always had a knack for writing since 7th grade, and then 8th grade I learned I had a little knack for acting. So I just wanted to get out the house. I was usually in charge of taking care of my younger siblings. So I was very shy, timid, afraid, sheltered. I didn't like going out and playing with the kids. I didn't like going to playgrounds. My sister would go and play basketball, and she was like the social one, and she had all the friends. I didn't really like folks like that. I had very few friends. I was usually friends with the nerds, because I was like the second best graded student in the class or something. I don't. Yeah, I was. I listened to my mother, and I made sure not to follow my sister's example because she did what she wanted, and that's still the repercussions.
But then, like, so the art came. You were creating art, and then from there you started. Like, how did you discover like the center dance party? Because I always talk about this, and it feels like it's like dinosaur land. Like no one knows what I'm talking about. So to be sitting with someone who knows about these parties when we were like literally 15, 16 years old is like refreshing.
We knew about them. I knew about the center, specifically the Yes Center, because of my friend Karen. Shouts to Karen Beckford. Karen was the first out queer femme lesbian Jamaican I had ever met in my life. Yes. And she still spoke patois, and it was just, so for me, she always felt like home, and we're still in contact today. Love her to pieces. But yeah, she had told me about the center, and I went down to the Yes Center. So we all knew about the center specifically because of those parties. Those parties, hey.
Sonny likes to make an appearance every once
I
in a while.
love it.
I gotta let him do his thing, and then let him go.
The parties attracted, I think, a lot of folks. And although I didn't really go to like Yes Center programming like that because the space was way too small for me to find comfort in. I definitely. You want some attention, buddy?
I'm gonna have to let him go. Excuse me.
He want to be interviewed next.
He does.
Yeah, those parties I think were how we knew the center best. And we couldn't go to clubs, and those parties. And I remember they would always play Donna Summer "Last Dance" as the last song.
Oh my God! Yes.
And that's how I was introduced to Donna Summer.
Really?
And that's how I was introduced to disco. And I started getting really into like music and like the older divas. And they were great. They were a source of inspiration and guidance for me while I was in foster care, I think. Aretha Franklin, Donna Summer, Shaka Khan. Yeah.
I remember they would always play the Faith Evans song, Face Trouble.
Yes.
What? And, Choo Choo Train or whatever that song was. And every time that song came, I was like, I need to find someone to dance with. Find someone to dance with. Just because it was like, that was a song you danced to. Yeah. Now, no one dances.
No one dances.
It's just, I feel like that's such an interesting perspective that you said that people are anxious.
Yeah.
And I pray for people to like, feel liberated to want to get on the dance floor again.
Yeah, I think we have a ways to go. I think it's happening slowly. I think now if you start dancing, you might garner a lot of attention as opposed to like a time when everyone was just dancing and it was a normal thing to dance.
Because we don't dance with each other, we dance on the floor.
Yes.
Like we'll do like a little like dance kind of thing.
Yeah, but not And the competition I think is what's uncomfortable. But if you go to a soul summit, folks dance
with each other.
I think so. I think to some degree, but I think just the spirit of everyone moving regardless and not being so like hyper with how they look or how they're moving. I think Soul Summit brings that vibe back out.
So then I guess like the way you're so connected to everything is through the arts.
Yeah. And but I think also like just coming up in like coming up and being connected to these programs, like my desire to get out of the house and get away from the burden or the responsibility of taking care of my siblings and actually like living my life. I think that reclamation of freedom, I think is also what thwarted me. Like I was very determined to find other theater programs. I was very determined to find resources and programs. I was so mad that I found like the Hedrick Martin Institute as late as I did in my like final years of high school because I was like struggling throughout high school, being in foster care and not having money. So I was like, oh my God, there's paid internships here. How did I never know about this? Going to the Yes Center. So I learned as I got older, there's still like a ton of programs in New York that, you may not know about, which like encourage young people, to utilize the resources. I used to work for the LGBT Center, and we would watch young people come from miles around, countries, states, to access services here because they don't exist in other places.
Wow.
They don't exist in other places. We are very, very fortunate. And although we go through the struggles that we go through here in New York, to have these programs has been the lifesaver.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And so, girl, you are, I mean, I'm just, that's incredible. The fact that people have to travel all the way to New York to get some of those resources. I mean, and me and one of my homegirls, we always talk about programs, being about program ass bitch. We always have some damn program.
When that show called it, your Giphy.
Like we just always. I mean, it's important to utilize those resources. Yeah. But like from one Bronx person to the next, I am curious. Do you think that the Bronx is safe for LGBTQIA plus people who belong to the community or adjacent to the community?
I think just like all the other parts of this city, I think it has gotten safer.
Okay.
I think there's still some areas that are a little sketch. Mm-hmm. And you're likely to run into someone who, I think what's happened, not for nothing, right? And I was just talking to somebody about this, is that because the visibility has increased, folks think they know us. I think folks think they know, particularly trans folks. Like, I think the visibility for trans folks has really increased, and now folks, I feel like, are they're able to identify us, but that doesn't mean that the information, the acceptance has grown, right? It's so it's like I feel like a lot of folks think they know what we look like, what we do, who we are, how we move, and folks feel like they're like experts on on us, and they actually don't know. But I think this is what visibility in the media, I think, has led us to. But I think also like there are a lot of folks that do not agree with us being so widely in the media. So I feel like there's like an uptick, in like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like there's something there that's not in alignment. Like there's just folks I think we assume that, okay, because folks are more visible, folks are more accepted. And I don't think that's the situation at all. I think it's the opposite.
In what way?
I don't know. I feel like there's more of a tolerance, but not still. I mean, it's not like we're talking like major inclusion. I don't feel like there's been a shift for folks to be more inclusive. I think folks are just aware and tolerant. I think there's more acceptance. There's more tokenism, which I think has led to more collaboration and more opportunities for the community to be seen and a chance to be accepted. But I still don't feel like folks really get us. I still don't feel like folks always really vibe with us.
People always think that I'm transitioning. They always think that like I identify as, I tell people I'm half woman, I'm half man. I come from a woman, I come from a man. Sense, yeah. And so it's just as simple as that. But like for me,
you're beautiful.
I mean,
and I love this hairstyle on you. Actually,
thank you so much. I mean, I like to try the updo every once in a while, but like so I say that to people, but I don't know. Besides that, I do have like a deep connection to like women of trans experience. I don't know why. Like, there's something about trans women. People who belong to the trans community, I just feel like, and I don't know if this is problematic, but I feel like there's something that like is so like, for me, welcoming. Like, just like when I speak to Gia Love, like she's so kind to me. Like, I mean, I've met some people who are not kind, but like, I feel like I'll meet women of trans experience and I'll be like, I got you, just like I'm being taken care of and taught things. Like I was talking to, I don't know if you know Demi.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, so I recently met her, and she and I was talking to her about like dating stuff. I don't know if it's appropriate to talk on air about it, but we were talking, And she was just giving me tips on, like, this is what you do when you go on a date. Like, don't let a guy do this. Don't let a guy do that. And I always feel like there's like this, I'm going to take you under my wing, going to like learn some things. I don't know. So I have a deep appreciation for like women of trans experience because you guys have always been so supportive of me and my journey.
Now you're talking about Demi Moore, the redhead.
No.
Which
I don't remember her last name. She's a makeup artist.
Okay.
Do you know? I
don't think I know Demi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Demi. Yes, I know Demi. Okay.
Yeah. So she's. I remember she
does music.
Yes. She's like a curve. She's from like South Carolina or something like that.
Yes, to Demi. Yes. Yeah. So beautiful voice.
Yeah. Yeah. She does sing, and because I was at an event with Dawn, and she was there, and like he was like there was like a point where he's like, I'm gonna need you to sing, and she was like put on the spot, and I didn't get to hear her sing, but I remember like her and we had a moment. And so, but yeah, I have like such a deep appreciation for women of trans experience, and like, you know, I do my best to let people know, don't be talking shit about the trans girls. Don't be talking shit. But I am curious, like, who are some of like, how did you navigate your gender expression? Are there people that like who've encouraged you, who motivated you through your journey?
Yes. It was a rigorous journey. I started presenting Femme when I got to Harvey Milk. So I transferred high schools, I think twice. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to 3 high schools. I started at Flags, hated Flags, left junior year, and transferred to City Ave School.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I was at the Bronx. I was living in Throgs Neck. I had just gotten out of foster care. I was living with my father and my brothers again, and it was closer. And I knew folks that had went there and were doing internships in exchange for credit, and I didn't like it either. And I realized for me, my queerness, my femininity was still a distraction in an educational environment, and that continued to be so. Like I just finally graduated college like this year.
Congratulations!
Thank you. But it took like a very alternative program for me to even go back. But I do think that yes, there is more acceptance now for me to even be able to go back. Like I'm like, okay, like in meeting other gender nonconforming people. In particular, I think the gender nonconforming movement, I think, has also like really aided. I think folks in accepting that we don't need to. Well, one, accepting trans people, accepting the fact that people can transform and change, and that the only consistent thing in life is change, but also like accepting that we don't have to be either or, that we can just be. But I do think there's something very particular about being femme, and as it relates to risk and safety and opportunity and support. So I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we've always connected, also because we're femme, and how we choose to present, how we feel most joyous. Is expressing that femininity, however we define femininity, and how that's perceived. And I've trailed a little from the question. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. It's more or less like
the inspiration.
Yeah.
So my earliest example of trans women was actually on the stroll.
Really?
Yeah, when I was in middle school, my father lived near Fordham.
Okay.
And I never forget, I think we were heading out. He was taking me to do like the standardized test, I think, or like the specialized test for like the specialized schools or some shit. It was mad early. I was over it.
I remember those.
Yeah. But it was like, okay, see if you can get into Bronx Science or whatever. So mind you, never auditioned for LaGuardia, but made sure to take that exam.
That's I did the opposite.
Oh, you auditioned for LaGuardia?
I did. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't get in, but it was a moment.
Yeah. The kids that did, they still feel it to this day.
I mean, but it was interesting because like during that time, I don't know if you know who Princess Nokia is.
Yes.
We became friends from that audition.
Wow.
I mean, we grew apart, but like we were friends during that time, and so because it was like I like your shoes. I like your shoes too. And like, I got a friend, but I didn't get like the school. So
right.
I know other people who got it, and I'm like, okay, good for you.
Yeah. I was just grateful to like find a program that was still gonna, offer those skills and offer that training. Yeah, but my role models as far as like trans folks were, my first time seeing a trans person, aside from like Jerry Springer or in random films, was was on the stroll.
Oh wow.
Dressed to the nines, like shining, at the crack of dawn. And I don't think I ever met another trans woman until I started going to Bronx Community Pride Center, where Miss Tyra Allure, aka Dominique Jackson,
oh wow,
I used to work.
And this is like on 149th.
On 3rd Avenue, 149.
Yo, listen, that place.
Yeah.
I remember I busted down on a nigga when I was there on one of them parties.
Before we continue with our conversation, here's a clip from the film Peace.
You ride.
Always, into the day I die.
We used to have parties there that were really
good.
Yeah.
I never went to those parties, mind you. I always heard about those parties, and I heard about the balls. But I didn't go to the parties because I heard the balls were dangerous.
I didn't go to the balls. I went to the parties. And I remember I danced with this one dude. I remember I bust the shit out of it. I remember we were on the floor because people used to really dance.
People used to really dance.
And they
really get down.
And so I was like, and at first I was such a goody two shoes. Kind of still am, but not really. And so I'm like, I'm gonna like let loose and like really. So I remember people used to bust down so hard that you would usually need someone to hold you as you were like doing your thing. Yeah. And so like is that place still there?
So that place is now Destination Tomorrow.
Oh.
Sean Coleman went back and reclaimed the Bronx Community Pride Center. Now it's Destination Tomorrow. I know Destination Tomorrow also has a location, I believe, in Atlanta.
Oh.
And again, like we're talking about, the 2020s, the soaring 20s, where there's been so many like efforts and initiatives started by trans people, started by queer people to, start creating more for ourselves. And I think it's really beautiful to see. But my earliest, I think, example of like a trans woman was, Miss Tyra Allure. Oh, wow. And she was a working woman. So I feel like and then I think after that I met Mika, who was working at Callan Lord. She provided me testing when I was on Christopher Street. I've been going down to Christopher Street, since 13, 14. So I think every time I've had a chance to meet a trans woman, it's been like, but it took me a long time to accept, okay, this is me, I started presenting more femme at Harvey in 2008, and everyone thought I was transitioning, but I was just expressing myself. I was finally in a space where I could express myself, but I don't think I ever really had the language until I was working in the field. I didn't get the Posse Scholarship coming out of Harvey.
Oh, I remember Posse.
You remember the Posse Scholarship?
They would give out like full-blown scholarships to like places like in Detroit and
4 years. Yeah,
I remember.
Pay your full ride.
Yeah, I know someone who got it though.
Yeah, I know you too.
Adalki, she knows what she is. I remember.
Yeah, and after I didn't get that, I was so bummed out that I just started interning, and because I was already like immersed, at the Hedrick Martin Institute, and I'd been introduced to ballroom through the Hedrick Martin Institute and through Harvey Milk. I just continued working at other organizations and learning about other organizations. I started interning at Safe Space. Then I was interning at somewhere else. Then I was interning back at HMI. Then I had gotten a position at the Lower East Side Harm Reduction Center. And that is where I started directly servicing trans folks because we did syringe exchange. So we would do syringe exchange, administer syringe exchange for folks on Christopher Street. in the West Village and in the East Village.
Can you explain? I know what this means.
Yeah.
Can you explain what syringe exchange is for some people who might not know?
It was started as an effort to keep syringes off the street.
Okay.
Keep used syringes off the street. And to encourage folks to use syringes more safely and not share syringes. So the idea is, you bring them your used syringes, and they'll give you new syringes. And the city, I believe, takes care of wherever the syringes go. But yeah, it was a program that taught me a lot about harm reduction, and really meeting people where they're at.
That is a thing that a lot of that's what my girlfriend and I talk about, like being program ass bitches. Meet people where they are at.
Yeah, meet people where they're at. And that led me to working at Safe Horizon. And working with homeless youth, working with youth in the juvenile justice system, teaching poetry, working eventually at the LGBT CENTER as their first arts programming and community outreach coordinator. Yeah, long title.
Yeah. But I guess, because I was curious, because to me, because before we started this like on camera audio conversation, I was like, you're so popular, and you said I'm so busy, and one of my questions is like, what makes you so tapped in? Is because of all the programs and resources you utilize, which allowed you to tap into the community more. Is that correct?
I think so, but I think and this brings us back to transcendence. I think the community organizations and centers are flawed. Especially in the sense that they cannot retain the staff. Most organizations, I recall, they are not able to retain the staff that reflect the community they're serving. And like that dissonance is that has led me, and I think many other folks, to just start things for ourselves and make a choice about how we want to continue to serve the community. And I think sometimes folks get caught up in the competitiveness of it, and I think it's better when we're making an effort to contribute, to give back to the community. When we're all making an effort to create, to reimagine, to rethink things, and how we do them. So love the organizations down, and I think what I'm being, I think what I'm really grappling with now, in wake of Jazara Femi's passing, is this understanding that, like, to be a part of the community, whether ballroom or just queer community, like just being who we are, I feel like I'm like inherently, like I'm going to run into these kids sooner or later, we're gonna run into young people that have been rejected and pushed out, and are seeking guidance and are seeking mentorship. So I think it's wonderful. I think all the wonderful examples that folks have now of queer success and trans success, particularly amongst the Black community. But I do feel like, oh my gosh, like, is it time for me to go back? Because these kids are also going to continue to utilize these resources. These kids are going to continue coming from miles around to utilize these resources. And if we are not there in the room, who is? And I find that these organizations, they're able to retain cis hetero staff. They're not able to retain, staff that reflect the demographic.
I mean, it's definitely, it's like, it's difficult because like we're doing our best to like to live, and like when we're not provided the right resources, we have to like go where we can get where we can get the resources to live. And so some people can just, they have the time, they have the privilege,
they have the capacity.
And so I mean, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, hearing you talk, I'm like, I could possibly see it for you in the future, like having your own like organization that like serves the community, because you seem so tapped in.
I think, and I think I could be more tapped in. You know, I think I could be more hands-on.
Really?
Yeah.
You are so tapped in. And I'm like, I feel like, damn, I wish, because like there's so many, like going through like the work and like you've done, I'm just like, and if you've worked a lot around the Bronx too.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's coming to a point where I feel like you have to know who Linda Law is. No, I know. I'm seriously, just because it's just like you know, like you, Gia Love, like there are people who are advocates for this borough, who are like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, like, you know, and so like I see how invested people are in you, and it's because you're so invested in people.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I want to bring that energy back to the Bronx. So I think it was here once upon a time.
Are you not in the Bronx anymore?
No, I'm in Harlem.
Okay.
But I think, you know, when I think about what it means to go back to serving community and what it means to you know, starting some shit up, you know, I want to be able to come back to the Bronx and say, yes, like we have arts programming in the Bronx now. Like, yes, we have, you know, queer community centers in the Bronx now, you know, not just one. You know, like the fact that isn't a queer community center in Harlem, I think is bizarre. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's interesting because right now, you know, for example, in Ghana is different than the Bronx. But in Ghana, it's illegal to be gay, and they try to open up a center in the Bronx. I mean, in Ghana, and they like law enforcement came and shut it down the day that it opened.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think that there's still like a little bit of stigma. People are still a little bit afraid to come up here. And then, like you said, like there needs to be more people who are advocating for this borough. But low key, I'm not gonna lie, like let people not stay here so we can still have this borough to ourselves. But at the same time, it's important for people to be able to get the resources that they need.
Yeah, and I think the Bronx has been used as like a dumping grounds for a long time. So to have so many people here that, you know, are getting housing through, you know, programs and being a program girl. It's like, where are the programs in the Bronx? You know, why is it that we had to go all the way to fuck downtown and every other borough to get what we needed and to connect with each other?
I mean, we were connecting on. I mean, I didn't meet you on Christopher Street, but a lot of us would go there.
Like, and even that neighborhood has changed so much.
Because they wanted us out.
They wanted us out, and it's unfortunately it's worked. And you know, that makes me think more about like what it means to reclaim these spaces, to reclaim these historically known queer spaces, and how to and what it means to expand on those spaces. You know, to create a Christopher Street in the Bronx. You know, I think at one point in time when, you know, the Ali Fournier Center was in Harlem, like 125th was real queer.
Really?
Yeah, and I wonder if it would like, now I feel like there's more like gay bars now in Harlem, and it's like, whoa, I wonder if they would be there if it wasn't for, you know, the queer visibility that existed on 125th Street, you know. But now it still feels like, okay, queer people can walk 125th and not, you know.
During what time? Because sometimes I be in my little cloud, so sometimes
I don't know. I remember interning at Boma Cafe on 5th Avenue, 125th when I was like 15, and I got it through the foster care agency. It was paying me dirt, and it wasn't. You couldn't walk down 125th looking how you look it now. You couldn't, not at that time. And I think the progress that, you know, and what has shifted, the progress that has been made in such a short amount of time. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it feels short, but it feels long. That I feel like it's been. I think AFC moved from Chelsea to 125th after the hurricane.
Sandy?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Oh wow! So maybe like 2010.
Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, just thinking more about like what shifts the community. You know,
like 2009, 2010.
Yeah, what is the measure of visibility and its impact?
I mean, you know, I laugh because for me, I've always been like the pretty boy on the block. Like, and when I say that, it's like I will come down with my hair like this and the shortest shorts because it's hot.
It's hot, right?
It's hot. And you know, like I'll be given that, and I don't know about you. Like some people like will be like, you walk around the Bronx like that, and I'm like, yeah.
Always have.
Always have, always will.
Always have.
It's hot. I feel hot. I feel cute. And I'm not gonna let anything make me afraid. So it's interesting that, like, I mean, I think I remember when I first started wearing skinny jeans in middle school, I was like a little bit paranoid because like, and I would also like from time to time wear leggings. I just wanted to really like highlight my figure. But it's so interesting that like even in 2010, which I guess was a long time ago, but not that long ago, where it was considered dangerous to walk around like that.
It was considered dangerous, and we still did. And I remember. I'm sorry. I remember like being in Brooklyn. I was living in Brooklyn around the time when I decided to transition. I moved back to the Bronx. Because I knew in the Bronx, at least folks would mind their business, you know?
Yeah.
And I think where I was living in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and I just knew I could not transition there.
Really?
I could in my mind, there was no way I could transition there because the more femme I presented and the closer I moved toward transitioning, the more resistance I met. I lost my apartment. I lost my job. I lost my other job. And was literally like, you know, pushed to like move back with my mother, who didn't know that I was like ready to transition. So when she started seeing it, it just became okay. And that was me going back home after foster care, you know? So it was a big leap and it was a very big disappointment. But luckily I had my big sister who was supportive of me, and she's been my most supportive family member. My most accepting person in my family, and you know, I know she's she's getting ready to move, you know, across the country, and I'm just like contemplating like what it's going to be like to not have that support, that emergency contact, you know, that person in my family that's like undoubtedly like, you know, here for me.
Have you ever lived outside of New York before?
I lived in Jersey.
Okay.
When I first moved out, yeah.
But you've never like been to like Texas, or I know you love Arizona.
I've been places. Yeah, I love Arizona. I've been places. Really.
I told myself if there was an opportunity, if I can just like slow down on life, I would buy a house in Paradise Valley. I don't know if you're familiar with Paradise Valley. Like it's like near, like Scottsdale kind of vibe.
I was in
I used to live Phoenix. So Phoenix is like, there was like different like areas. It's kind of like you're in New York City, but you're like in Long Island or whatever. So like Paradise Valley is like kind of like, there's Deer Valley, there's Central, Scottsdale. And so Paradise Valley is like, I used to live in Deer Valley for like 6 months.
Wow.
Because I saw that you made a post like, I love it here. And I was like, another Black person who likes Phoenix. So
I like the dry heat.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I can see myself retiring here, but the laws and the rollbacks on the laws across the country is like really, you know, diminishing my once so broad view on like where I could live and where would be safe. Like I think knowing that, you know, the world, so many places in the world are still grappling with accepting queer and trans people, just like really limits my idea of like where can I travel and be safe, let alone live. But you know, we go out on coverage every day. You know, we're from the Bronx.
I literally, people are always so shocked when I tell people how much I love Egypt, because I mean, my hair is not, I didn't go like this, but my hair was out, so I would wear it out with these extensions. Not bothered. They would be chasing you down, girl, if you know what I mean.
And this is what I mean, that I feel like, you know, it's like the ignorance is the same, the discrimination is the same, and the chasing is the same no matter where you go. the men are the same. So it's like, wow, I'm sure, I feel like I could go to another planet and it would still be the same situation.
Possibly. I mean, you know, like,
it's astounding. Shout outs, yeah.
I had so much fun while I was there. So much fun. But I am curious because I'm so fascinated with your world. What does Linda World looks like?
My world. My world. Yikes. Well, I just finished school, so I'm kind of like...
Congratulations once again.
Thank you. I'm just like kind of like in between, like, what's next? Like, I don't know what's next. There's a lot that I've been like working on and working toward for a long time, but hasn't really like come into fruition. I think my musical work. I go to karaoke every Tuesday now.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back, like, used to like singing in front of people. And like that has its tensions too, like just like walking in a room and being the only trans person.
Where do you get like, how do you get to the safe, vulnerable place when you're on stage?
It's been a series of like, you know, trial and error and recording oneself and like really going with a mission that I feel like, you know, as they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I feel like I've gotten so distant because of transition from the things that I once loved and once brought me so much joy. That I'm trying to get back. Like, I still don't feel like I've done dance gigs, but I don't feel like I've ever gotten back to like that full-time dancer that, you know, with the dancer's feet and the dancer's body, you know, that I had back in the early 20 teens.
I mean, but you had the opportunity to like dance on pose.
I did,
and you also had lines. You were you was an actor on Pose.
Yeah,
like how did that come about? Like that's a time when you did do that.
Yeah, I did, and I think, you know, film is real different than theater, right? And I think I learned acting and the arts through theater training. So for me, it was a discipline. For me, like theater is a ritual. It's a very spiritual thing, I think, which is why I was so happy to work on Priestess of Twerk. It was really Priestess of Twerk really embodied performance as a ritual, and where performance and ritual and spirituality meet and intersect. But Pose came about. I was already doing extra work, background work, before transition. My first the first film I did was Pariah, actually.
Really?
Yeah, there was so few extras that turned up that they said, okay, y'all are gonna be background actors, and I had an amazing time on Pariah, and I've been really privileged and humbled to be able to be on these like really amazing queer productions, and be a part of them. And Pose was just like one I really wanted to add to the list, but it became a vendetta for me. I was originally reached out to for the role of I was originally reached out to for the role of what is the role? Wow, why am I blanking on this name? Electra.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But the way it was pitched to me, I didn't know it was FX. I didn't know it was television. And, you know, at that time, I felt like there was just like historically since transitioning, I felt like anyone that ever approached me about a trans role, it was always very sensationalized and, you know, ballroom-esque or just like very stereotypical. So I was very weary of working with cis people. And particularly cis writers. And I think it's still an issue now, you know, like shout out to Janet Mock, you know, but like, you know, we can't put all of our expectations on Janet Mock to produce something that's going to cast and, you know, bring jobs to trans people on screen. So I feel like we need more queer and trans writers. I think, and I've been meeting more, I think, queer writers that are including trans people in their scripts. which is, I think, really, really wonderful, particularly gay men, and other, folks in queer community. Um, that's been really, that's been progressive. But we need more. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, I don't know if I need to be. I don't feel like I need to be another, light skinned girl on television. Like, I'm like, maybe I need to be in the writers' room. Maybe, like, someone needs to help generate these stories so that we actually have roles that reflect, who we are, and not just, the stereotype, or you know, the usual gag. But yeah, Pose, that's how Pose came about. I was doing background work, extra work, and um, yeah, I originally came on. They reached out to me for Electra. I came in, I auditioned for it. I didn't get it. Uh, Dominic Jackson was more than deserved. But I was skeptical. And I think the next time they reached out to me was for the role of Blanca. I auditioned for it. I didn't get it. Um, but once I learned how large of a production we were actually talking, I said, okay, I really want to be a part of this irregardless. So I started doing, I think I signed up for background work. And when my first time on set, I was supposed to be with the Old Way Vulgars on the pier, but they were shooting in Red Hook. It was freezing. They wanted us to bring our own clothes. So I was carrying too much stuff, and carry all that stuff for no reason. They said they didn't need me in the Old Way Vogue set anymore. But that they were going to put me in as a street worker. And I was like, wow, how stereotypical. Whatever. So they put me in hair and makeup after they took me out of hair and makeup for the Old Way. They put me in a different hair and makeup, and then I didn't get approved to even get on set because they said I looked too much like MJ. I said, interesting. So I still got paid, but I was never on set. So I was like, okay, I need to get on set. I want to get on set. And the next time, I think I submitted, it was for ballroom attendees. And it was freezing, and I was in a kitten heel, and kitten heels hurt way worse than heels. I've learned. I learned walking back and forth. We were on set all day, and imitating a ball in this spot in Harlem, this historical landmark, and yeah, my experience at first wasn't like, oh my god, amazing. I still felt like there were a lot of white people working background, hair, makeup, wardrobe. They were working that was production staff, and I remember specifically, we finally wrapped. We wrapped very, very late, and like holding where they were keeping us. They were busing us back and forth from holding to set for discretion. And yeah, I remember we wrapped late, and hair and makeup had already went home, so they were snatching wigs off the girls off the set. Like, no. Yeah, and because we was done filming, the girls there was no more bus. The girls had to pump back to holding, which wasn't that far away. But they wanted me to pump through my neighborhood in Harlem because that's where we were filming, with no wig on. And that was a huge issue for me, that I really didn't even think I was going to come back to the production. I told myself I wasn't going to come back to this production unless it was for a feature role. And yeah, then they brought me back for the Mother's Day episode, and the Femme Queen Storm, and I got to work with Sanaya and Deja and two other legendary Femme Queens whose names I'm blanking on right now. But it was just like such a honor and experience. But I was also working like full time at AFC at the time, so it's like, I think what happened for me is, like, while I was like afraid to let go of the full-time job and the sustainability, in nonprofit, I was still pursuing the art part-time or whatever capacity I could, because in my mind, I didn't think I could make a full-time living off the art as a trans woman. Like, even like doing multiple things, not just doing spoken word, doing acting, doing dancing. It just never seemed like it was going to add up enough. And I was so afraid to leave nonprofit for the longest. And so I was like, as the art started picking up more and more, especially leading up to like Stonewall 50 in 2019. And I think also like me, joining the House of LaBeija, it was like, oh, okay, like this is picking up. I have to make time for this. So I was calling out from work to do gigs. I was, using vacation days and sick days to do gigs, and it just reached a point where I was like always working, and I had no breaks, and I think I just got really burnt out. Um, uh, but I came on for the feature role, and that was amazing. And I think after that, I just got tired of trying to juggle both, and I quit. I quit nonprofit in 2019. My last day was Halloween 2019, and I went full time artist from there. And it was slow at first, and then it picked up, and then I was brought back to do another feature, and then the pandemic happened. And we were literally like in wardrobe, like nervous about whether or not to shake each other's hands, because of the news and how it was developing. And then everything got shut down. And the next time they reached out to me was to audition for Swan. And like, I think the lines in and of itself were so resonant for me at the time, because the pandemic hit, and as an artist, I began to deeply question whether or not I was essential. And I think I like had like a real severe like I guess life crisis, figuring out whether or not this was the right direction. It just felt so bizarre that I finally made the decision to leap and to take the risk and go full time. And now this happened, and I didn't know where my next gig was coming from. And
life of an artist.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, but so when Post came through, it was really all or nothing. It was really, there was nothing else coming through. And anything that did came through very sparsely. But most of what I did during the pandemic were writing gigs. I was like by the computer all the time, and I hated it, which is why I stopped doing visual art. I can't sit down. I need to be up. I need to be moving around. And yeah, I think that opportunity was also a journey in and of itself, because I came on set without the knowledge that the show was ending.
Oh.
So we were shooting the last scene. I thought we were just shooting the last scene for the season. I thought maybe I had like, got some consistent work. Maybe I would have a recurring role, something. Delivering, those lines, and really feeling that bleakness, that loss of hope. That is where I was, and that is where I was on set, because I had no idea that the show was ending.
Oh wow.
So it wasn't that we were doing the season finale, we were doing the series finale. We were doing the last scene of the series finale, and I said, oh my goodness. And it felt like I was, I guess, in MJ's shadow a little. I think throughout the process. I don't know how many times I've been on set, and they're like, no, she looks too much like MJ, take her out of that,
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was really my locks that I think set me apart, and they would call me back specifically when I had my locks and when I submitted with my locks, because they said, we don't have a girl that looks like you. And I always found that to be really interesting and really inspiring, that my locks have been a large part of my success. Well, I feel like locking my hair has I feel like I've lost out on other opportunities because of it. Like it's really shown me, it's really shown me the privilege and power in that wig.
Listen,
but Pose, it was heartbreaking being on set, and they still had more scenes to shoot. But the fact that the show had grown to have so many queer folks, not just on camera but off camera, so it was really tragic. On set, it was a very, very sad day. and we were in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the middle of quarantine. Like, shout out to Janet Mock. I'm so sorry. Like, I never gave her like a hug because we like had shields on. You know, we couldn't touch, and I just had to wave. And it was a strange time. It was a strange way to work. Strange introduction to that work.
And then it was on. I mean, like, there was just so much happening on that set. So much happening. And so, I mean, yeah, it's amazing that like you have that opportunity, and like
very honored, very very privileged.
And then you also have the opportunity to work and perform at the Met, which that's incredible.
That was with Bill T. Jones, and that was also during the same time when we had to be masked. And I wish I could have worked with him more, you know, in a choreographical production. But I think, we was in there sweeping rice, and that was exactly what I needed after coming back from my grandfather passing.
My condolences.
Yeah. I think, a lot of us lost a lot of people. A lot of us lost a lot of our elders during that time. And I think a lot of us are still healing from that time and learning how and what we're healing from that time. That doesn't feel that long. It wasn't that long ago.
It feels like it was yesterday, but it was 5 years ago. Just insane.
And I think it was like progressively, like it took us a while to get out of it. Yeah, like
we're still kind of getting out of it because like now this financial crisis that we're in, it is. I mean, the drug uses on the street, the homelessness, it is. I keep reflecting on this time and saying, like, if we lived in the 80s, this is what the 80s would have been.
Yeah, and everyone's been saying that this is very similar to the 80s and what it was. It's like 80s 2.0 with the drug use. And I think even I was just on a panel talking about sex work. I think even sex work, like the way it's become so digitized, if it is on the street, it's in more rural areas, more desolate areas, more dangerous areas. And, heavily, there's a heavy presence of drug use. And substance use, I think, in these areas. So yeah, I think we're definitely. I've been saying we're living through a very auspicious time. I think, especially with the election and the laws and the policies and the state of the world. It's like not really sure what's gonna happen next.
It's very uncertain.
Yeah, COVID numbers are back up. Yeah, so it's like it's given stay safe, everybody. Everybody stay safe.
Lock your ass up.
Wear your mask.
Oh my God.
Yes, wash them hands.
Yes, people don't
do that.
I'll be in the bathroom and I'll see men like not even wash their hands after they finish urinating. I'm like, do you not remember where we were a few years ago?
I mean, the MTA isn't even cleaning the trains anymore.
Are you?
They was wiping them trains.
That's true.
Wow, this is how it should have always been.
Right, still should. Where are tax dollars going?
Exactly. And I thought it was something so fascinating when I went to visit Antigua for my grandfather's burial. That everywhere you went in Antigua, there was a sink outside the establishment, so you had to wash your hands before you even went inside anywhere. And I think they only ever had 2 cases.
Yeah, practice cleanliness, America.
New York. New York. From the Bronx, girlie.
From the Bronx.
Continue being up to date with all things peace by following the links attached to this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's wrap up the show.
I submitted something to the National Queer Theater that got an honorable mention during the quarantine and pandemic. And I really want to do more theater work. But I think, maybe you're right. Maybe film really needs to. That's how we've also reconnected since the panel at the center. And I was just so shocked to see you because I haven't seen you in so many years, and I don't know how we lost contact. But I'm really happy to be back in contact with you. Yeah. I'm happy you're doing all of these different things. You're doing film, you're doing this show. What else are you doing that I don't know?
I mean, when you came to that table reading, I was so moved in your perspective
Aw.
because I just didn't see things in that way. You talked about the relationship with the characters because, as people know, I'm working towards getting peace as made as a feature, and so to get your perspective, I was like, I have to find some way to like sit down with you and pick your brain and like really reconnect. And so that's what we're doing now.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, but I do have 2 questions because I know you're a busy lady, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
So I want to first know, because of all your attributes in like nonprofit world, you know, you working, you know, on at the Met, you working on Pose, you know, we didn't get to touch base on it, but you've had your work featured at Afropunk, like all these different things. Like, what does expansion look like for you?
Expansion right now. Expansion for me looks like finishing what I started, which is why I went back to school.
What did you go to school for?
I just finished out for liberal arts, concentration in writing. At Bard Micro College. Check it out. Free ride. And I don't think I would have went back to school if it wasn't free.
Same.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're at now. School needs to be free. And I think there are more college programs that are getting hip to the idea that people are not going to pay back student loans.
Listen.
Yeah, and that, you know, school really needs to be free, as well as healthcare, as well as so many other things that we need, instead of bombs and guns and war.
Same, girl.
Yeah, I think this is a time of expansion, and I think for me that means arming the girls, arming the community, getting us ready and getting us safe, and building on the skills. I think there's been so much like entrepreneurship, you know, in the community. You know, whether you're talking about BTFA, whether you're talking about the Okra Project, whether you're talking about Destination Tomorrow, whether you're talking about, you know, Lambda Lounge. You know, I think there's been such an uptick in Black, queer, and trans entrepreneurship, and I think that is the expansion. I think, you know, starting the House of Transcendence. You know, we founded that coming out of LaBeija because we wanted to, to retain our kids, but we really wanted to create a space that would be more inclusive and create balls and events that would be more inclusive of, you know, Black and brown, you know, trans and gender nonconforming people. We saw how underrepresented trans men were in ballroom, how almost invisible, you know, gender nonconforming people, you know, were in ballroom, and like this is supposed to be the thing that, you know, was created, you know, for folks who needed this kind of safety. So I think expansion is also constantly thinking and considering how to make things more accessible to folks with different abilities. And you know, I remember I had foot surgery about a year ago, and it wasn't until I had a boot and a cane, you know, and trying to navigate this city, you know, that I learned, oh wow, there's more police officers in the train stations than there are escalators or elevators. You know, there's so few. There's so many liquor stores, so many Chinese food stores in the hood, but there's no benches. You know, we have so many, you know, folks, elderly folks, differently abled folks in our community, and they're not accommodated. They're barely thought about. And I think, you know, there's a consciousness, there's a shift, I think, happening in the collective consciousness of our people and in the world. That's like, oh yeah, we need to address this, we need to fix this. So I think it's definitely a very expansive time. I think about that.
I love to hear that. And yeah, I mean, I've never thought of it in that way. Like, we need more benches. The little things too.
The little things.
Yeah.
The little things. Yeah. Like, yeah, you know those moments when you're just out and about, you know, you got some time to kill, and you're like, damn, there's nowhere to sit and just enjoy a meal.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I was just saying that earlier. But you know, I think maybe it's because sometimes people just don't want people lurking around. They don't, you know.
So that's why the benches are built like that. It's like, you know, because they don't need the third ring or the separation, but they don't want folks laying down on the benches. They don't want folks, you know, to make And I'm like, you got to deal with the homelessness issue, the houselessness issue,
or provide resources so they're not.
Exactly. But instead, I think especially street homeless folk or folks that are struggling with with mental issues are just like pushed along and constantly pushed along and constantly pushed along, um, and done really nasty in the institutes that do exist in the shelters, to the point where a lot of folks don't even trust going to a shelter. Don't even trust the resources that the city provides because they're not adequate. So yeah, I think expansiveness, it's a lot to be addressed, especially just here in New York City.
I mean, I totally agree with you on that. And I didn't even realize that, yeah, we are in a time of expansion, so we should be able to put it forward. But, I am curious. This is my final question, because I could sit up here and talk to you all day.
Talking to you.
Yeah, this has been really cute. I've been having the best of time. I want to know, how do you produce peace?
How do I produce peace? Through confrontation.
Well, what's your sign?
Sagittarius.
Of course. I'm a Libra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, y'all Sagittarius. When's your birthday?
December 15th.
Okay, yeah, that is such a Sagittarius thing. Like, that's so wild.
Yeah.
You guys are fiery.
We are. But I think, I don't know, I wouldn't, I've been called fiery. No,
adventurous.
Yes.
Charming.
I think confrontation is the first step.
That is so interesting that you say that. And I agree. Listen, I say that, like, when it comes to like astrology, it's all fun and games, like, because we all have nuance, we all are different shaped and all that. But like that, my dear friend, that is a Sagittarius thing to say. Y'all are just so. But continue. I'm interested in hearing more about this.
I think confrontation is the first step, and I think one wonderful thing that I think I learned at a young age in these programs was conflict resolution. And I think a lot of folks, I think particularly in community, we go through conflict and we don't reach points of resolution, or rarely do we ever reach points of confrontation. So much so that, and we have so, like yes, there are more spaces where we can congregate and be and exist comfortably and amongst each other now, but it still doesn't feel like enough. You know what I mean? You're still going to run into the same, the same people. And I don't know if that's just like the size of the community. I don't know. But the degrees of separation have always been few. So to be and to have conflict or be in conflict with folks in community, I think it's still really difficult for me to feel wronged or or scorned or resentful toward folks in community. It's still really difficult for me because we still have to navigate so few spaces because the degrees of separation are so few. That for me, like maintaining peace is not only like, okay, maintaining, self-composure and how I'm going to react, and choose to react to certain situations, but it's also like, okay, at some point I need to make the decision to have the difficult conversation. And like, how else do we heal if we're not having the hard conversation? And like, yes, we can go out on a limb and risk it all, for a ball or for a gig, but where do we take the risks in having the hard conversations? And I think after in 2019, my mother, she had lost the house and she was staying with me, and I took the opportunity to have the hard conversation. And ask why. Why can I provide for you what you could not provide for me at a time that I needed it? And I wish our relationship had, I wish we were closer now. But I like to think that was the beginning of some kind of healing. That we carry deep wounds with us. We carry deep wounds with us, and the body remembers. No matter how much the mind forgets. We gotta heal. Gotta confront.
Well, I wish I could steal some more time from you.
What time is it?
It is like 6:57.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I wanna, but I'm glad. I'm glad that I had this time with you.
Yeah.
And many more.
Yeah.
Many more.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I was like so scattered and all over the place.
Yeah, no worries. But before we end,
yeah,
I would love for the people to know where they can find you, how they can tap in with you, with Miss Linda La.
I'm on Instagram, Linda La FM. I believe it's like LINDA_LA.FM. I can't remember. I'm on Twitter, but not really. I also I'm just not a social media girl anymore. Like I haven't really posted consistently since 21. I just feel like I enjoy this, and just opportunities to connect and have real conversation and make real memories. I'm getting back in the habit of taking pictures again, and taking pictures with folks, and making those memories. We've lost so many this year, and it's just really reminded me of how much the pandemic has really taken away, those habits that allowed us to remember, taking pictures.
If it's not even if it's not for social media, at least for yourself.
Yeah.
Because for the community that you belong to, so they can have them too. For your nieces, for your kids, for your cousins, for I'm a firm believer in documentation of the friends and loved ones and all my loved ones of my community. That's why we're here today, because I feel like you're someone important that I would love to sit down and talk to, and I'm glad that we got to do that today.
Thank you. It's such an honor, and I really get asked, so it's really truly a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's a pleasure.
Aww. I'm gonna give you a hug.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.